This podcast um, is sort of in response to the meta chapters, chapters 4 and 5, that we read tonight. And so it talks about assessment, achievement, accountability, yada, 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 how the whole testing and standards started. Pre a nation at risk and post a nation at risk. And kind of a trend I saw sort of throughout the article is a lot of the article is talking about how the reports and reform during this time were really holding teachers accountable for student achievement. So I think that this is something that really needs to be addressed, because I think the relationship between reform and teachers isn't exactly beneficial for our education system. So a lot of the reform suggests higher raise for higher achieving teachers, suggests the standards they must be held to, the credentials they must have before being a teacher, all of that, which is great. I think we do need to hold our teachers to a high standard, because they are the people who are being responsible for making sure our children develop correctly. We're placing a lot of trust in them, but at the same time, I think that relationship between us and the basically needs to be a collaborative effort. So between the policymakers, the parents, the teachers, I think there needs to be a lot more teacher support. There, in that article, there weren't any really detailed outlines of how we can go about helping these teachers achieve the standards that we are holding them to. Because essentially the standards for children on state testing is being translated to the standards that we're holding teachers to. So there's no detailed information about how we should spend funding for possibly more professional development, leadership trainings, no requirements of collaboration amongst schools or even within schools or between SPED teachers and regular ed teachers. None of that. And also just the idea that these tests are just giving you a number, an achievement number. So let's say you're from a lower performing school, you're a teacher from a lower performing school, and you go and look at the test scores from a higher performing school. All this tells you is like, okay, my students aren't reading at the same level of proficiency as this school. What I think would be more beneficial is if this teacher from this lower performing school was able to look at the test scores and be like, okay, my students aren't achieving at the same level of proficiency as these students, and this is why, and these are the methods that these teachers at the higher performing schools are using, so maybe I should try implementing these methods. Of course, every school is very individualized, but I mean, sharing teaching methods or instructional strategies can never hurt. It can always be altered or experimented in different environments, and that could possibly promote more achievement in students. That kind of using test results to almost promote collaboration. And so kind of just these overall questions of teachers, what are their roles, what do we want for our teachers exactly to achieve, what are our expectations. We have really high expectations for them, but there's very little support, so that kind of results in the burnout rate that we're seeing in teachers. Also, with these high expectations, maybe the really accredited teachers, high credentials, don't want to teach in the lower performing schools. So then they go to the higher performing schools, which then continues the same process of these lower performing schools are not reaching the standards they're supposed to. So, yeah, kind of just a jumble of thoughts on the accountability of teachers, and kind of what these standards, and the testing and other assessments that we started using because of all these reports. I think we need to go further or deeper into adjusting the role of teachers, because if we are going to hold them highly accountable, we have to give teachers some sort of more stronger aid, than we are giving them now if we want to see better results.